Okay, well, it looks like we're online. Welcome to a very special episode of the Brought to Light Masonic Podcast. I'm your host, Brother Jack Aquilina, and as you can see, we're coming to you in a bit of a different way this week. We're coming to you via a Google Hangout. It's going to be something that we're doing once a month from this period onwards. We thought, because you like our voices so much, we'd let you see our faces, and as you can see, everyone's got a fantastic face, so hopefully this will be something you look forward to on a monthly basis. Now, the Brought to Light Masonic podcast is running its Innovation Month, which I'm sure you're all aware of, which is focusing on how can we ensure that the future of the craft remains to be bright. What can we do to ensure that our organisation is relevant to younger generations? So what we've been doing is we've been bringing on some of the best and brightest minds in Victoria and across the world to talk about some of the things they think we will need to do to ensure that we secure that future. Last week, we had an interview with Worshipful Brother John Ruark, who is the host of the Masonic Roundtable. And we had a fantastic discussion about the role of his Masonic survey, the Ultimate Masonic Survey, and what it's telling us about, our craft and the people who are in it. Before that, we had Robert Johnson, who spoke about the digital age. And this week, we have a fantastic Masonic Roundtable style discussion with a bunch of young Masons here in Victoria, who, in my view, are some of the brightest minds, with the exception of David Illingworth. So once we proceed today with this discussion, you'll have the opportunity to hear the views of some younger Masons. We've got guys of all different ages, from all different ranks and all different geographical locations. So that way we can sort of canvass some of the things we like about the craft and some things we'd like to improve. We're going to get straight stuck into Masonic news, but to do that, I'm going to invite our guests to obviously participate in Masonic news. I'll start off. The Brought to Light Masonic podcast is obviously very engaged in the Blue Lounge Social Club. We are an initiative of the Blue Lounge Social Club. And as a consequence, you hear a little bit about what the Blue Lounge Social Club is doing. The Blue Lounge is obviously launching its education pack, or sort of portal, that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. The purpose of this portal is to provide young Masons, any Freemason really, but particularly targeted towards young Masons, to give them an opportunity to be able to find the information and resources possible to get them through the 3 degrees. What's happening, unfortunately, in a lot of lodges, and I know a lot of our listeners will be able to relate to this, is that across the world, lodges are finding it very difficult to not only just run the everyday, sort of administration to lodge, but they're also struggling to provide young guys with mentoring. And what we're trying to do is provide that opportunity through this online education portal. And it includes a seminar that allows you to do the answers, and it provides you the answers to the questions that you need to learn between the degrees here in Victoria. It also provides copies of articles about the first degree, and also previous episodes of this podcast that discuss some elements of the degree. It's all secure. We only provide people information based on proof. They have to prove they're a Freemason. So in Victoria, the best way to do that is to provide a copy of your Masonic passport. Or if you are from interstate, you can provide copies of your dues card or any other relevant proofs, and we'll obviously approve your access. Just bear in mind, if you're accessing our system from overseas or interstate, the content, whilst it may overall be relevant, some of the specifics might not be. And if you'd like us to develop a specific seminar to assist your members getting through their relevant degrees, whether it's they need to remember a certain line or they need to recite their obligation or whatever it may be, hit us up, and within the rules of your constitution, we'll try and put something together to try and assist you. Also, you will have to prove your rank. We don't just give everyone access to everything. So if you're an entered apprentice, you only get access to information that relates to that degree, and so on and so forth until you get to your sublime degree of a Master Mason. Also, for Masonic mentors, we are putting together a content package for you. The idea behind this is to assist you with mentoring. Mentoring is very important, but it's not easy. And anyone who pretends to know all the answers is lying to you. And so we've tried to collect resources from a bunch of different people who have been experienced mentors and bring that as a resource that's available to you to assist you to bring other guys to light and to ensure that they stick around with Freemasonry and they're getting their relevant questions answered. So that's all the news we have for the Brought to Light, Blue Lounge Social Club, which I guess includes the Brought to Light Masonic podcast. The only other thing that's worth mentioning is that we have on the 27th of November an event coming up, which is going to be hosted in conjunction with Freemasons Victoria and Lucky Stars, which is an initiative or a foundation created for the purposes of organ transplants. They promote the benefit of donating your organs to other people after you pass on, and the life-changing benefits that can provide to the community at large. We're hosting an event that's going to be in conjunction with those two organisations, which we're looking forward to announcing further detail on. So keep your eyes and ears out. We're going to put some more details up on the Facebook page, and hopefully you'll be able to sort of get an idea of what we're doing on the 27th, which will be happening quite soon. So with that, we'll give the other guys an opportunity to do some, give us an idea of their Masonic news. Steve, give us an idea of what you've been doing for the past 2 weeks and anything interesting that's popping up for you.
Been a busy 22 days or so, hasn't it, Jack? And it's good to be back on the podcast and put a face to, as you can see, I actually am not Stone Cold or the Lee Majors from the $6 Million Man. I am my own Steve Austin. Before we get off the cricket day, I do believe I've been tasked with the format. So we have a mini cricket carnival style format with 8 aside, 11 aside, 8 over format. So it'll be short burst games. Everyone bowls 1 over, pairs will bat 2 overs each. That way, those who are not too physical, in the words of Olivia Newton-John, let's get physical, can get out and have a hit, and we can rotate a few guys through the day. So bring a squad of 15, I reckon, would be a good guess just to drop it in there. So we'll hopefully have a side from each district and hopefully a veteran side from the greater community of Freemasonry, and also the stars from up at
Bendigo,
yeah. And I'll have the actual opportunity. I've got a sportsman's night at my cricket club where Robert Quiney, who's an ambassador for their cause, will be at my club. So I'm going to get in his ear and hopefully he's a Victorian cricketer and has played a few tests for Australia. I'll get in his ear and hopefully we can get him down there for the day. It would be great. But watch his space. We'll have something a bit more official out there, as Jack mentioned. But as far as the last couple of weeks, Jack, you and I went to Sydney last week.
Yep.
Separate motel rooms, thank goodness this time. We both snore like steam trains, so we both got decent sleeps. But we went we were invited by Lodge Garibaldi, which is the Italian theme lodge in Melbourne. And for those who don't know, there's 4 Italian theme lodges across Australia, and they try and visit each other's installation every year. So we joined about 140 Italians up there for installation, which was in the afternoon. We enjoyed some lovely weather up in Sydney. They turned it on for us, and we had a lovely pre-session before with some nice nibblies, and then we bussed out to the venue at Petersham at the Egyptian Room. Had the installation, then off to Darling Harbour for a lovely dinner, followed by a follow-up the next day at the Worshipful Master. We've been doing that lately. Worshipful Master's house out at near Liverpool, with a lovely spread of food, and I think we both discovered a lovely drop called limoncello that day as well. The week before, we were down visiting Simon Reynolds and the guys down at Traralgon, which was a fantastic weekend. Down at the Mercer Manor, as I've come to call it, out at Yinnar South. I think I've got that right, Simon. But it was a good couple of weekends away, and obviously we had a lot of visiting in between. We had a couple of first degrees in the Northern District, and I've been to that and visiting various other lodges and just wearing other hats as lodger instruction and assistant education officer. So it's been a busy couple of weeks.
Beautiful, busy and productive. And let's introduce our first one of our many guests that we have here today, and that is Brother Simon Reynolds, who is the president of the Greater Gippsland Region Blue Land Social Club. Simon, welcome to the Brought to Light Masonic Podcast. Do you want to give us an idea of some ideas surrounding what you guys have been doing down there in Gippsland, and some bit about Masonic news and a little bit about who you are as well?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for the welcome, Jack, too. So as Steve's just mentioned, we had our launch just the other week in October. There, we had a great turnout there at Bar 3844 in Traralgon. It was a very, very casual atmosphere. I think everyone that was there will agree that it was a pretty fun night. The weekend's activities continued, of course, over at Mercer Manor. Which was graciously provided by worshipful brother Jordan there. Just a really good way for the country guys and the city guys to connect over that weekend. I can't thank you enough for coming down and supporting us and letting us be part of your weekend's activities as well. It was really great to be part of that. So. About me, okay. I've joined Freemasonry, I think around about 7 years ago. I'm a member in a few different blue lodges. I've got 14 lodges at the moment that I belong to. All different orders, of course, not just craft Freemasonry. But in the craft, I'm the senior warden over at Lodge cornucopia, and I'll be the worshipful master there, installed in March. So, little plug there for third Saturday in March for everyone that's listening, if they'd like to come and be part of it. As far as what else is happening in the area, I've been out visiting a few third degrees. I was out at Bairnsdale. We had a third degree candidate, Gus, there, and Glenn, and he was absolutely awesome guy, and he's really tuned into the Blue Lounge social club stuff as well. So I'll be using him to actually attend some of the first degrees that are further off in the east. On that, we've got 3 first degrees coming up in Orbost and Omeo, which is quite a hike. It's up near the New South Wales border there on the east coast. So plenty of kilometres for me coming up, that's for sure.
Well, thank you for all the work that you do, Simon, and it is exciting to have the Greater Gippsland region having a club, and you guys had a fantastic launch. It was a really good weekend, one of the more memorable
great
weekends
launch
I've had, and thank you for all the work you're doing, and especially for travelling up to Orbost. I know that will be a big trip, and either way, I know that those guys will be very lucky to have you there. So thank you for that, and let's introduce our next guest, who is a fantastic guy, and as you can see, I've already pulled the piss out of him once, but you'll probably find that happens throughout the episode.
It's the secretary. We'll let it do that.
The secretary of the Northern District Blue Lounge Social Club, also an entered apprentice of the Brunswick United Lodge. I'd like to welcome Brother David Illingworth, who is here today to assist us with the episode. And David, welcome to the Brought to Light Masonic Podcast. I know you've been involved since the beginning, and it must be good to finally get on the podcast. Could you give our listeners an idea of who you are and what's been happening in your Masonic journey over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, most certainly. Thanks for having me, Jack. I have been involved, been looking forward to finally getting on, so people can, for the first time ever, see my face as well as my voice. So apologies for the face. But yeah, no, I've been pretty busy as well. We've been helping Steve with some visiting, so trying to get to as many first degrees and second degrees that we can. I know I've personally been busy just trying to get everything set up for the Northern District, trying to work on calendars and events so Steve and I can keep track of who's going where and what needs to happen. Going to be pretty busy for next month. I've got my second degree next month, so looking forward to that. So I've spent a lot of time practicing on that one as well to make sure I know everything I need to know. But yeah, it's been a blast. I, of course, went to Greater Gippsland Lodge, which was a lot of fun. So thank you, Simon, for having me down there, and it was quite a lot of fun and good to meet you guys. But that's probably about it for myself.
Beautiful. And you got your second degree, and it is happening on the third Tuesday in November at the Davey Street Masonic Centre, which is at Moreland Road, off Moreland Road in Brunswick here in Victoria. So if you do happen to be around and you want to see a lot of the Brought to Light / Blue Lounge guys, and you want to get along to an awesome second degree and support David through the journey and also all the other guys there, then get along. We really encourage you to be there. We're tiling at 7:15, and there is a catered dinner, and there is no cost to visitors, of course, if you do come. But if you do want to come, please RSVP. You can do that to contact@blueloungesocial.com. That way I can let the secretary know of that lodge, and that way they can ensure the caterer's got enough food for us. So talking about guests, let's go to a guy who we're a little bit familiar with.
Best to last.
Brother Andrew Power. Don't say that his head will get bigger than it already is.
I want to see when fill the screen up.
Brother Andrew Power, who is a member and fellow craft now. Sorry, Andrew, I didn't mean to demote you, but fellow craft of the Brighton District Lodge. I believe it's number 37, and also a regular contributor to the Brought to Light Masonic podcast. You did co-host the episode with Robert Johnson a couple of weeks ago to kick off our Innovation Month. Andrew, welcome back to the Brought to Light Masonic podcast. It's good to have you on, especially in this forum. Could you give us an idea of what you've been doing over the last couple of weeks and some of the exciting things you're looking forward to in your Masonic journey over the next couple?
Sure. Thanks, Jack. And Steve, yes, look, I will appreciate Steve's comment of save the best for last. It's pretty obvious. And Jack's a little scared. He's scared right there. He's shaking in his space booties even. Now, look, over the last few weeks, we've been getting our social media presence together. Now, Blue Lounge has hit Instagram pretty hard. And in the last 7 days alone, we've picked up 533 new followers. So if you're on Instagram, guys, I recommend you follow the Blue Lounge. The username is Blue Lounge Club. So get on Instagram, get the conversations going, and join in. Now, that said, look, the Brighton District Lodge, we've got a Christmas event coming up, and I'm sorry, Jack, but I'm going to plug it because it's my lodge.
Oh, God.
On the 9th of December, we've got a Christmas event. It's open to any Freemasons who would like to attend. We do, however, need to know in advance. So if you're interested in doing that, you can get onto us through Facebook. The username or the page name is the Brighton Freemasons. Just shoot us a message and we can hook your invitation up for that. In the coming weeks, well, let me see. We've got the cricket event coming up, so you're going to start to see more and more. I'm watching Steve doing his little hand actions there. You're going to have more and more events and content coming out on social media promoting that. So, guys, even if you don't like cricket, some of you love cricket, come along. If you don't like cricket, guess what? There's going to be a great environment to still come along. And as Steve's sort of doing his own little gestures down there, you'll have a chance of meeting some really great brethren and family and friends. So it's certainly an event worth attending. So don't miss out.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Andrew, you did have your second degree a couple of weeks ago. How did you find the experience? And you must be excited to be on that step, towards the sublime degree of a Master Mason.
Absolutely. Look, I was privileged enough to do a triple second, and there's some people that go, it's a unique experience. It should be up to the individual, and I can absolutely appreciate and understand that. The way that our lodge did it, it put 2 of us through, and then it had another one of us go through. So there were 3 of us, but we sort of still split it up in some respects. Look, it was an experience. I was able enough and fortunate enough to actually then witness the second degree happen to another brethren 2 days afterwards. So it sort of helped everything fall into alignment. And of course, David was fortunate enough to be the entered apprentice who came along to that second degree. And of course, the life of any entered apprentice at a second degree is outside with the tiler. and what had actually happened was the tiler at that particular lodge was so graceful, he even gave David permission to come into the lodge when we were in the second degree, and I've never seen an inner guard bench press another brethren. And it was fantastic because David had come marching in like he knew exactly where he's going, and he saluted in the first degree, and it was absolutely perfect. Brilliant salute, David. Hats off to you if I was wearing one. But then, of course, the footy tackle from the inner guard was just hilarious. I wish I had a camera in the lodge room just for that. So I've never seen anybody sort of make it into a second degree from an entered apprentice level in that way. And I'll certainly be looking forward to attending David's actual second degree where he can remain inside.
It was really funny to see that, to be honest with you.
Experience and a half.
Hilarious. But I think
Trapdoor might be a good idea.
I think, David, you should probably have the right to reply on that one. I was actually worried that I was going to have to email Nick, and that's our secretary at Brunswick United Lodge, and say, "Hey, mate, don't worry about the second degree coming up in November. We've already had to do it at devotion." So could you give us an idea of what happened there, David?
It was a fascinating, funny experience. It brought a whole new meaning to brotherly love. It really did, getting manhandled like that. But I do appreciate the brother escorting me out. I just basically, what happened is I was sitting outside minding my own business. The tiler comes running around in a mad rush. Do you want to go back in? Do you want to go back in? I'm like, yeah, okay. He goes, quick, and just rushes me through the door. And I don't know what's going on. I obviously can't see what's happening. And then, basically got promptly sent out, nearly tossed out, which was fun. It was a new experience for me, and that's the joys of Freemasonry, getting those new experiences.
And talking about new experiences, this is sort of on a serious note, one of the most impressive situations I've ever been in was where the director of ceremonies came outside to us, and we're the only visitors on the night. The Blue Lounge were the only visitors. It was about, 5 of us, I think. And the visitors came, the DC came out and said, the Worshipful Master would like you to parade into the lodge and to be introduced under your respective banners as the Blue Lounge Social Club. And I tell you, I've never seen anything like it. And it was really special to be brought into the lodge, to go to the saluting base, do the first degree sign, and then be introduced to the Worshipful Master as the state president of the Blue Lounge Social Club with my respective officers and brethren. And it was really special. It was a real testament to the fact that Lodge Devotion understands that young Masons are the future, and that together, if we do support each other and make each other feel appreciated, we will actually achieve some great things. So the fact that they did that, I'd like to say thank you to Worshipful Brother Jordan Mercer, who's a huge supporter of the club. And I'm really excited to announce that he's recently been appointed as the liaison officer to the Central District. So if you live in the Central District and you're keen about getting a Blue Lounge started in your area, and you'd like to participate in the process of getting one set up, then please, by all means, contact Jordan Mercer and we'll get the process underway. So thank you to him. Any other news, guys, before we head into the topic, or would you like to get straight into it?
Yeah, look, I've got a quick announcement if that helps. It's on behalf of Lodge Fraternal. Now, Lodge Fraternal meet at 15 Church Street, Brighton, and they're coming up on Wednesday, the 26th of October.
That's
now,
Brighton.
Brighton. Yes, Brighton. Yes, I still have to pronounce that. It is my mother lodge, but I'm working on it. So on the 26th of October, Wednesday, they tile at, I believe, I'm going to say, look, 7:30 for safekeeping there. They've got a first degree initiation coming up. Now, the reason I'm mentioning Lodge Fraternal is because they've been a great and huge supporter of Blue Lounge, and I just wanted to let all of the listeners know that you're more than welcome to attend Lodge Fraternal. Please get in touch with their secretary if you're interested.
Absolutely, and Lodge Fraternal are huge supporters of us, and thank you to the treasurer there, Simon Benedict, and all the brethren there, especially Hillel Benedict, most worshipful brother Hillel Benedict, the past Grand Master, who's a member there, who've all been really supportive of us, and we've been really excited by the fact that the Bayside District, which Andrew is a member of and was our liaison, has been really behind what we're doing. So we're looking forward to getting something started in the Bayside District as well. And also, not to mention the Monash Gully district, which Brother Sashi has been working hard to do over the past
doing really well out there.
Couple of months. Yeah, it's been really, really good.
We saw him out there Monday night.
Yes.
First degree.
Yeah, you attended one of the lodges out there, didn't
Good
you?
Companions, yeah.
Yeah, great.
One other bit of news for the Greater Gippsland region is the next event, which will be the just before the Outram installation in Currumborough. We'll be hopefully meeting some of our South Gippsland brethren over there, and we'll be in the pub across the road from 1 o'clock onwards. So please come down, have a drink with us, have a little bit of fraternal affections before we go and enjoy the installation.
What date's that in, Simon?
So it's the third Saturday in November, which is, if you give me a moment.
The third Saturday?
19th.
The 19th, that's the one.
There you go.
Well, Jack and I will be in Adelaide, so we'll have a drink for you about that time from afar.
Lovely.
And to wrap up news, because we've done quite a bit of it, for the brethren who happen to listen to this podcast and are in South Australia, we will be there. Brother Steve and I and a few others from the Blue Lounge Social Club will be in Adelaide supporting the installation of the new worshipful master of the Leonardo da Vinci Lodge. And we'll be proud to be there to support him and to be part of the entire process that'll be happening during that installation. Knowing the Italian lodges, they will do it properly. So I encourage you, if you want to get along to their events, contact the relevant person via your Grand Lodge. And we look forward to seeing you all in Adelaide. Thank you for that, brethren. Let's get into the topic for today, which is talking about what it is we believe we like about Freemasonry here in Victoria, what we don't like, and some solutions to some of the challenges that we are facing. The first question I want to ask you is in relation to what were your first impressions of Freemasonry? So try and think back before you're a member, back to a time before your initiation, or maybe just on the night of your initiation if you need to, and think, what were your views or impressions about Freemasonry before you joined? And was it a positive one or was it a negative one, and why? So let's start with Steve. Steve, tell us, I know your dad was a member. We've discussed a bit of your Masonic history.
A little bit of a different view than I think, apart from Simon, I'm not sure. You family in Freemasonry, Simon, or?
I had an uncle who was who still is a Freemason. Yeah. Uncle Don, who is not the most worshipful Grand Master, but an Uncle Don nonetheless.
Well, Donnie's good, and Don Austin was my dad's name, and we've worked out on at least the third generation, possibly fourth or fifth generation Freemason. So I'd catered events. I'm in hospitality, so I'd done an open installation for my dad 5 or 6 years before I joined, and I was keen to join from a younger age, but as I mentioned before, there was reasons I didn't. Family encouraged me not to until I was ready. But my impressions of Freemasonry were that of old guys.
Oh,
pretty
gosh.
much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. People you admired nonetheless.
There was a few younger guys joining, my brother and some of his friends were going through, and but it totally just appeared like it was an old boys club to me. So that sort of didn't encourage me too much. I enjoyed what I saw, the pomp and ceremony of the open investiture, which you could see is non-Freemason. It really impressed me and made me more interested. But to see the reaction of my cousins who came along with us, it actually scared them. So to see that different reaction between myself and guys that hadn't had any exposure at all, seeing an open investiture was quite interesting.
So your first impressions were that it was an older organisation and not
it
many
was an
young
old boys
guys.
club. It appeared to me, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. And let's jump straight to David Illingworth. David, you're another person or another brother who's had family who were members. But obviously, during the period in which your grandfather was a member, hearing about what they actually did at Lodge was probably a rare thing to hear. So what were your first impressions of Freemasonry, and was it a positive one or a negative one?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, obviously, my grandfather was a Freemason for 50, 60 odd years, but I never really truly knew he was a Freemason until sort of probably in the last 5-10 years or so. All I knew is that he went to Lodge. That's all the family ever spoke of. That's all they really ever said. So when I went, I never went to any dinners or anything like that with him. So my first interactions was when I went to Brunswick United there as a guest just for the South. And I think the thing that amazed me most of all, the number one thing that shocked me to my very core, was how unbelievably nice everyone there was. I'm in the business world. Normally you meet new people, there's always a bit of hesitations. Yeah, even Jack was nice. But everyone there, they asked you questions and they genuinely wanted to know the answers and wanted to know who you were. And I thought that really spun me out, coming from a business world where people just generally don't want to know who you are unless you're of value to them. So that was my golden first impression.
Okay, so that's a good first impression. I mean, I guess that sort of resonates a little bit with me. One of the most sort of things that got me really, excited about Freemasonry before I joined was they get up and we sing a lodge song. Most lodges have songs they sing, and at Brunswick United they got quite a good one. And got up and good. It's a good song, and everyone got up and shook my hand. Everyone in the room made sure they got over and shook my hand. That's really, really encouraging. It's a great first impression to have. So yeah, I can sort of relate to what you're saying there, David. Let's jump across to Brother Andrew. Andrew, tell us what was your first impression of Freemasonry? I guess last time we spoke with you, you did give us an idea of your background and how you came to join Freemasonry. You got obviously the military connection, which was quite profound. How did that sort of how did that translate across to your first impression of Freemasonry?
My first in-person, experience of Freemasonry was different of reading books. So there's only so much you can get out of reading a book, and people read books and they judge the craft based on the material of the book. Now, the unfortunate thing is my 7-year-old daughter could write a book and publish it, and it could have anything in there. And, let's just say even Wikipedia is questionable. So my first face-to-face experience with Freemasonry was absolutely, it was never, I never read that sort of environment inside of a book. I remember walking into, it was the Brighton District Lodge, number 37. How's that for a plug? And I walked in there into their hall where they do their South, and there was all the sherry bottles lined up and this huge long table. And I mean a really, really huge long table, and you'll have to come and check it out if you want to see just how long it is. # long table. But all the guys, all the brethren are upstairs in the lodge, because at Brighton they have the lodge upstairs, and so this big empty hall. And of course, being a bit keen and eager, I turned up a little bit early, and I was sort of confronted by this empty hall with lots of the history, the photos from the 1950s from Hearts of Oak Lodge and some of the other lodges that meet in our same building. And each of these pictures had like a piece of the puzzle that explained how the lodge came to be, and it showed generations of members. And so you started to get a feel for the nostalgia and the history before you even get to say hello to anyone. And then from that moment, all the brethren, they knocked off doing the lodge work upstairs. They came down and they're all wearing regalia. And of course, if that's the first time you've seen that, even in a book, a picture, it might speak 1,000 words, but you see, no, 30, 40 guys walk past you. And the first Souther I ever attended was following the installation of the Worshipful Master at Brighton District. So some of the guys come down, they were wearing a lot more prettier regalia than the other guys, and I didn't think much of it because I really hadn't had that frame of reference of who's who. So afterwards, they got their regalia off. They came in, and they were human beings. They came up to me. They talked to me. They were telling me all about what they did, who they are, their families, everything like that. And it wasn't until much later in the afternoon, in the evening, I should say, that my proposer, he came up to me. He goes, "Do you know who you were just talking to?" And I just thought, "Yeah, that's this guy over here. He runs this sort of business. He does this. He's got a wife. He's got kids." And my proposer's jaw hit the ground because I had actually just been talking to the whole grand team of Victoria, just like they're just normal guys. And he says, "I've been in the craft since 1988." And he says, "You just don't do that." And of course, I never read that in a book. And it didn't say in the dummies book or anything like that, don't talk to the grand team because they're not human. Because in fact, they're very, very human. And I think the thing worth noting, that my big takeaway from that night, without taking too much time, Jack, is that regardless of whether you're an entered apprentice or a grand master, the quality of character, of course, it builds as they go up to levels, but the amount of amazing people in Freemasonry really is what caught my attention. My very first experience, it was the toasts, it was the camaraderie. Yes, it was the singing of the lodge songs and Advanced Australia Fair and things like that. But it was a character. It was just an environment that to this day, I can't find anywhere else that ever does it. Not that I'm looking anymore because I found Freemasonry. So there you go.
I think you make a good point. I think the beautiful thing about Freemasonry is the fact that you have an institution that stood the test of time. It's been around for time immemorial. We say a long, long time. Some people say, 500 years. It's really no way of knowing because it's morphed from a bunch of traditions that have been around since, or can be traced through to the ancient mystic schools in Egypt, in ancient Egypt. So it's a long tradition, and the sort of nostalgia that's inherent in Freemasonry about sort of some of the regalia that we wear, some of the costumes that people wear, the whole concept of having the toast to the Queen and toast generally just at a dinner is something that would be quite old-fashioned these days. But it is interesting, that exposure to some of that nostalgia and steam, and also be able to talk to people who they might be dressed up in these wonderful regalia, but they're just normal people at the end of the day. It's really interesting. So it's one of those things. I guess your feedback would be good on this, guys. I mean, one thing that I've noticed is that people come to Freemasonry, their first expressions, their first engagement with Freemasonry is in the South. Now, sometimes it's positive, sometimes it comes across really well and people love it, but sometimes people get really intimidated by the dinner suits, the formalities, the bow ties, the fact that sometimes they walk into a room and they're the youngest person by 6 years. That's the question. I guess is the question I'll throw open to you guys before we go under Simon's first impressions. Is that the best place to sort of bring a candidate for the first time, their first engagement with Freemasonry or Freemasons?
Oh, look, I much prefer to see a new candidate come along to one of our Blue Lounge Social Club events. Honestly, it's a lot more informal. Everybody's just wearing normal clothes. Everybody's having fun. That way they can approach us on their terms. I think when we bring new people along to a South, we're taking them out of their comfort zone and we're approaching them on our terms. And I don't think that's necessarily the best way to introduce the craft to them.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%.
Yeah, I mean, the only addendum I'll give to that, though, is it does help to highlight how nice everyone in the craft is, because here's someone who's uncomfortable in an uncomfortable setting. Everyone there's in basically dinner suits with bow ties, having a formal meal, and they're more than happy to walk up to the person who they've never met and say, "Hi, who are you? What brings you here tonight?" and genuinely ask them questions about who they are. And I know for myself, I knew one or two people in the lodge from Blue Lounge events or guys I went to school with, but it amazed me how other people or other brothers would come up to me and just have a chat, and there was no pretense, no nothing. It was just so who are you? And it never made me feel uncomfortable. It almost put me at ease because they weren't interrogating me or anything like that. They were just, what do you do with yourself?
You're lucky though there, if I may, Dave. I've been to South where there's candidates sitting in the corner and no one talks to them.
Yeah, it's great. It's great where it works.
It's great when it works, and you're very lucky at your lodge. And most lodges I've seen it happen. It is in its minority when it does happen. But as Simon says, you just said you were at a Blue Lounge thing before you went to the Brunswick, were you? Or?
Yeah. So I sort of I came along, if memory serves, Lucas invited me to just one where I met like Jack, and that was about it. But I never really met many of the older brethren there, apart from Tommy, who's also in the Blue Lounge, and Canute, of course. But that was about it. But when this first South I went to, I got to meet like Nick, the secretary, who's just a big, large, lovely character in himself, and a few of the other brothers there who surprised me as to how nice they were.
Yeah, I mean, the first time. Sorry, was that you, Andrew?
That was. I was just. You go ahead, Jack. No, go ahead. I was just going to say my first South that I went to after I got to meet some of the guys from the Grand Lodge. I had, there's one particular gentleman in my lodge which I won't name, but he's got the best character, and he's kicking on about 94. So that's pretty much going to highlight who I'm talking about in my lodge.
Really good guy.
And he is awesome. I mean, this guy comes up, he goes to some of the lodge's social events as well, but he made me feel welcome as well. And I've got grandparents that couldn't even hold a candle to how welcome this guy made me feel. I didn't have. And I'm not saying I've got crap grandparents. They've all passed, unfortunately, and there's a lot of respect there. But this particular individual, he embodies what it is to be, and he's been a Freemason for almost 70 years now. Now, I just wanted to say, if my comment to David there, or sorry, Steve, you were saying that you've seen initiates sitting in the corner by themselves. I think that's probably something a lodge needs to address. The person who proposes them should be there to support them, and that's why we just did the shout out for the first degree at Lodge Fraternal, because these guys, it's their biggest event. It's their birth into Freemasonry, so to speak. Well, not birth, that's not the right word, but you know what I mean. You know.
I'm more talking like even before they do their first year, they come along 2 or 3 Souths, and they sit at a table and they're intimidated by like what someone was saying.
Yeah,
and I get upset with, and that, I agree with you. I think everyone should be getting around it. Let's get around it.
Now, I think Blue Lounge is an important part because it allows them to socialise without all of the expectation. I think what's also important is that they are able to establish themselves with one particular lodge. Now, it's good to go out and visit lodges, but I think you really sort of have to work out which is going to be your best mother lodge first.
I agree. That's the hardest part. I mean, one of the things that I find is I personally agree with you all in terms of where it works well, but I'm a bit radical in this respect. I don't think the first impression someone should have about Freemasonry is the lodge, because it is an intimidating environment. We live in a society now where young people have less interest in the needless sort of formalities that occur, and people are, whether it's right or wrong, and not passing judgments about society, people are generally more skeptical of institutions that seem conservative. So it's important that we ensure that people's first impressions of Freemasonry is one that exposes our values, which is the idea of support, brotherhood, fraternity, these sorts of things. And I think that an informal social event does that no better than any other forum. So it's one of those things. I think the other thing that we need to take in mind is that when I was listening to what you're saying, David, I think it's a really good point that you made. You got the chance to meet Nick and all the other guys at our lodge. My first experience meeting Nick was at a coffee shop in Preston. So informal once again. So it works well for me in that respect. But okay, let's jump to Simon. Simon, give us an idea of your first sort of impressions of Freemasonry, and positive or negative, mix of both. Give us an idea of what the story behind that was.
So, obviously, my first introduction to Freemasonry was through my Uncle Don. Now, I only now after becoming a member do I realise how much of a pain in his bum I must have been asking him what the secret handshake was all the time. But my next sort of brush with the craft was when I was at work, and I actually heard one of the engineers that I work with there, who I hold in high esteem. That's He's actually the Most Worshipful Grand Master of the Mark and Code, and also happens to be my proposer into the craft. But I heard what he was saying. I think it was the second degree working tools. It might have been just a little passage from that I heard, and I said, oh, I recognise that, Ian, because I, of course, snuck little peeks at whatever sort of things I could get my hands on round at Uncle Don's, and asked him about lodge, and it was the curiosity hook that got me.
Yeah.
I was really I wanted to know what it was that this ancient rite of passage that all these gentlemen and heroes of mine had already been through, and I wanted to be part of that. I wanted to find out what it was that gave them that burning desire to belong to that group, and I thought, well, there's so many great Freemasons through history, and it's certainly something I wanted to belong to, and yeah.
So the mystique and the sort of, I guess, the veil of secrecy, I guess, was what brought you in. You're interested in what is this organization? What are they doing? Why are they investing their time in this group that it must obviously give them a good personal benefit? Because what was that all about? That's really interesting. I think that you make a good point. That's what Freemasonry has in terms of a competitive advantage on the marketplace. I mean, one thing that we do that other organizations don't is we have a ritualistic initiatic experience that has stood the test of time and actually provides people with opportunities to experience that no other organization does, that I'm aware of at the very least, in terms of the mainstream organizations that people are aware of. So that's a really interesting point there. I think that you make a really good point. Let's transition from there. So you've all highlighted your first impressions of Freemasonry. So you had that first impression, and then you ended up joining, and let's think about, your membership is, where it is at the moment, or maybe a couple of years in, or for the case of the people who joined recently, where you are at the moment. You've gone through all that process. You finally got into the lodge. Now tell me, give me an idea or some dot points about what you enjoyed. What did your expectations, were they satisfied, to what extent? And also what's some things that have been happening that make you think, wow, that's not what I expected, and that's really something that I don't like about Freemasonry. So let's start with David, I think, on that one.
Hi, Jack. Okay. Well, a lot of questions there. So when I first was first joined and went through the experience, I absolutely loved the ceremony of it. When I started to go to some of the lodge meetings, I really enjoyed the ceremonial side of Freemasonry and the brotherhood, the companionship side of it that there is a lot of. So that spun me out, because even though I knew a little bit, when I spoke to friends who were in the craft, they said, don't do any reading, don't do nothing. You don't want to ruin the experience of it all. So I was very cautious to basically almost know nothing when I went in there, which I think which definitely helped. But I mean, it's difficult to say what I don't like. Probably the key things that I don't like would be probably the thing that I think is almost hurting the craft moving forward is what I refer to as like the old guard. There's a real resistance to basically change from a lot of the old guard, and initiatives like the Blue Lounge Social Club, while the greater majority of Freemason and lodges are fully supportive because they see the benefit that we have and the benefit we can give to them by supporting younger members coming in. There are still a number of older members who resist that change. Like, no, we don't want a bar at that. We don't want any of it. Which, I mean, to me, that shocks me a little bit, because it seems counterproductive. If we don't get new members in, then in 30 years' time, there's not going to be a craft to worry about. But that's probably the only thing that I don't really like, is just some of that resistance to change. Now, I'm not saying we change ceremony, change everything, and change the fundamentals of the craft. I think all of those fundamentals are crucially important to what and who we are. But I think there are some things that, with modern technology and the younger generations that are coming through, I think we need to adapt a lot better to be able to support them and encourage younger members to join.
Thank you for that, David. We'll get to the issue of change in a moment. Steve, give us an idea of when you joined the craft. I know you had family and the rest, and you had these great first impressions. So you finally got involved, and I know you've been through a few turmoils. What are the things that you really liked or affirmed that you'd made the right decision? And what were some of the things that surprised you as being stuff that you really right decision to join? And what were some of the things that sort of happened that you've made you think, wow, I didn't expect that, and that's not good enough? Some things that you didn't like.
Well, the resistance to change is probably, I think it's our biggest stumbling block without going onto that. But a preconception of people judging you and they don't really know you would be some of these. It's a very small element. I mean, it's like the one bad apple in the barrel spoiling the bunch. It really can do. And Jack mentions turmoils, and I won't get into individual issues, but the thing that I love about Freemasonry is the guys that were against me or whatever the change may have been. There was 9 guys against that one. So it's 1 out of 10, or could be 1 out of 100 that don't want that change. I think the thing I really don't like about Freemasonry is the conception that the outside world has about us. I mean, I heard a term today. I was up at Lodge Arumbat. For those, Lodge Arumbat's not actually a lodge. I take a guy, Wally 79, up to see Wally's 96. So there's a combined history of nearly 100 years of Freemasonry between those two guys. And they call it the Black Hand Game. I'd never heard of it. And apparently that's what the Freemasonry was referred to back in the 70s and 80s. And when I Googled what the Black Hand was, Google it and have a look, it wasn't a good thing. So that secrecy stuff, it's missed a generation. And that's the biggest thing I find. And they're the guys that don't want to change. They want that secret. And I respect, I've got a younger brethren that's why they're in Freemasonry. They like that secretive side to it. And they don't want all their workmates. They don't emblaze themselves as square and compasses like I do, obviously. And I'm, to use a gay and lesbian term, I'm out and proud in Freemasonry. Not gay, just out and proud of Freemason. But that's the thing I hate the most. I dislike, hate's a strong word, but it's those guys that don't like the change and that want that, think we should stay a secret society. And as Dave said, we won't be around if we keep that up.
Interesting. Let's jump to Andrew on this one. Andrew, you've heard some interesting points, I think, about the things that we like and dislike. In terms of your brief experience, what were the things that you obviously had preconceptions going in? There were certain expectations you had about the product you're purchasing and participating in. What aspects of that product satisfied what you wanted, and what aspects have you sought back and thought, wow, that's a bit defective. I don't like that aspect of it.
All right. So look, I guess product is not the right word for me. I joined Freemasonry with, okay, this is a way that I can help forge myself to become a better person. And I don't think you'll ever find a one-size-fits-all product for anyone that's when it comes to improving yourself. So I joined Freemasonry with the idea that this is something that's going to help me support myself to be a better person whilst I can help others. So I'd have to say, what's the one thing that's probably fallen short in that? If you'd have to say there was an expectation, it's these, and it is a rare. I wouldn't say it's 1 in 10. It's probably more like 1 in, well, I could almost say 1 in 5,000. But in this case, maybe, look, to be fair, maybe 1 in 1,000 people who they get up and they talk about the virtues and all of the different values, and they chastise others for not exhibiting those values, and then as soon as they get down off their own soapbox, and this can be in a lodge room or it could be in a private meeting, they then go about doing the opposite of all of those values that they've just had a go at everyone else for not doing. And I don't know about everyone else and about you other brethren on this hangout, but for me, if I'm going to expect something from someone else, I better well have sort of that down pat before I can even look at them.
True.
And it's about helping each other, not judging each other. And I think the moment you start to judge other people like that, you've kind of already started to miss the point of the rough to the rough ashlar and working on that.
Yeah, that's statistics aren't my best, so your numbers are probably more closer than mine, Andrew.
It is rather rare to find these individuals, but they are, unfortunately, and they are in every organisation. It's not just Freemasonry.
Yeah, I mean, I agree exactly what you're saying, and I'll take a point of difference. I think the word product is perfectly fine. We do provide a product and a service. We provide a service to people as an organisation saying, join our organisation and we'll enable you to be a better person. That's a service. So it's a product on the marketplace. And we have to start thinking these lenses, because otherwise, if we can't define what it is we do, then we're going to be in a situation where Rotary Lions will turn around and say, we provide a product and service. We provide an outlet for you to provide community service to people. And we'll turn around and say, oh, Freemasonry, yeah, that's that. What is Freemasonry again? Yeah, I mean, you ask the guy in your lodge next time you go, the guy sitting next to you, and you'll be surprised with the answer you get, I think. Let's go to Simon. Simon, let's talk about some of the things that you thought that Freemasonry did well after you joined. You joined and you're interested in the secrecy and the sort of the mystery surrounding the order. You got in the doors, you did your ritual, all the things you liked about it, and some of the things that fell short of your expectations.
Sure. Well, I suppose the Simpsons have got so much to answer for. I mean, I was expecting the stone of shame and then the stone of rejoicing, but and the what was it? The paddling of the swollen ass.
Yes.
But no, none of that happened. No. In all seriousness, it was quite. I deliberately tried to stay away from any information regarding Freemasonry because my proposer said, don't look stuff up because it'll spoil the night for you. And so I tried to, and my imagination ran wild with what might happen at the initiation. I mean, I had the Simpsons. We've all seen more than one YouTube conspiracy video, I'm sure. But
kissing of the goat.
That's it. But no, it was just the support that all the brethren gave me when I got there. Every single one of them told me that not to worry, that they'd all been through the same thing and they're all still 99% okay afterwards. But no, it was really, really good. I did stress a little when one of the members asked me if I remembered the clean white jocks. But he was very, very cheeky. But no, it was a really good night. And I suppose it's a real emotional experience going through that, and then to be able to have that to go through that experience and then have that south with those supportive brethren. That was probably the biggest highlight. Really grabs you. Really says, okay, I'm now part of this.
Yeah.
And that's words can't really express. I'm a very poor description of what your first night in Freemasonry is like. As far as things that sort of turned me off, I suppose one of the worst ones is people that stand up in lodge and just like the sound of their own voice. They love to talk and talk and talk. The problem is that we've only got so much time in a lodge room, and to spend it going over minutes and treasurer's reports and just things that could be sorted outside of the lodge room and committee of general purposes. It does my head in. But the other thing is very disappointing to go to quite a large number of country lodges with so few members.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit unfortunate that we have so many lodges in the country, regional small membership. And there's more than one lodge meeting in that lodge room. I mean, we really need to justify what we're doing, because it's not impressive to bring a candidate to a lodge room that only has 12 people in it. It's missing the point. When there's 3 lodges that meet there that have 12 people in them, it's time to start thinking, no, one lodge, 36 people, then it's impressive.
Need to bring back the electricity.
Exactly right. I think you make a really good point. And thanks, guys, for sort of giving me an idea of the things that have worked and fallen short. In terms of my view on this issue, I'll give you an idea. I didn't join with any expectations, really, to be honest with you. I didn't even know there was a ritual side to Freemasonry. I was completely ignorant, as ignorant as the profane get about Freemasonry. So that's why I sort of described my joining as an accident almost. But I did join and I did experience, the ritual and the experience, and I've really enjoyed it. And my first, 18 months of membership was fantastic. It was bliss. But then you start noticing, as with every organization, you notice little cracks in the walls, and some of those cracks become sort of more obvious than others. But my sort of thing is that everyone knows what I think is great about our organization. We've dedicated so far 16 episodes discussing what is great about our organization. So we're going to focus on some of the negatives, because a strong organization should be able to discuss the things it can do better. And I'm happy to highlight some of those. I agree with everything that's been highlighted. One thing that hasn't been touched on is poor ritual. Yeah. Poor ritual is so awful. It's exactly what we shouldn't be doing. And I'm not talking about word perfect, Oscar performing ritual, but I'm talking about ritual that is done to the best of one's ability, where the lodge is putting enough effort and time into the rehearsal and preparation of that ritual, so it's delivered in a way that is important. So,
can we clarify what ritual is to those that might be listening the first time, Jack?
Yes. So if you listen to episode 14 of the podcast, you'll get an idea of a little bit about what ritual is. But ritual is basically the ceremonies we conduct as Freemasons to communicate the various degrees. They're like plays to an extent. They're also almost a mix between a play and a lecture and a performance that seeks to dramatize the message we're delivering. And part of that is a requirement that people, like actors and performers, learn certain lines, learn certain movements, and act in a way that is, sort of in accordance with the structure of the way we structure our ritual and plays here in Victoria. Every jurisdiction has its own ritual, and most of them have similarities, but we've got a particular way of doing it here in Victoria. So although our standard is better than a lot of places, and I can tell you I've visited quite a few places interstate and overseas, important that we do good rituals. So that's one thing I want to highlight. The other thing that is worth mentioning as well is ensuring that one thing I don't like about Freemasonry is not only the idea of adverse to change, but the ageist element of Freemasonry. Because you're a young person or a young member, it's, this old-fashioned idea of better to be seen and not heard. This concept really bugs me. And it's a matter of, most lodges don't have this attitude, but there's always one or two people in an organization that will, and that's all it takes really to sort of set off the alarm. And the role of young people in things like lodge committees and lodge structures and lodge organizational sort of momentum is important. Whilst experience is important, having people who've done it for a long time is important, including people organically through the process. So you're handing off the baton as time goes by. Lodge progression, they call it, is really important. So that's the other issue. My lodge has been really good with it. Brunswick United has a good lodge progression plan, but one thing that frustrates me is a lot of lodges don't, and they don't think about their young members, and they sort of cast them to one side. So there's a multitude of issues, but they're sort of the main ones for me. And the other thing is lodge politics. Absolutely useless, and that's on the Grand Lodge versus local lodge scale. We are an organisation that elects our members. We're a democratic organisation, but come on, guys, it's a hobby. Freemasonry is a hobby. We enjoy for fun, and if the biggest concern you have is getting up in lodge and questioning the treasurer about $20 of expenditure, then maybe you should stay home and write an email or go to a committee rather than rocking up to lodge. So that's some of the concerns I have with Freemasonry. But let's expand on those a little bit. Maybe we're not just going to talk about the problems. See, we're actually going to talk about solutions to these problems as well. So let's go straight to lodges, lodge business, the way we do lodge. Lodge, just so our listeners know, is the primary place in which you're meant to be exposed to Freemasonry. It's where the lodge, it's where the ritual's done. It's where all the exposure to your formal regalia and formal setting of Freemasonry is. So if you'd like the opportunity to maybe give us an idea of what is it that we can do to make lodges better. Well, let's start with the guy who's about to be the next worshipful master of his lodge. Let's go with Simon. Simon, what are some things that we can do to make lodges more fun? Because as far as I'm concerned, I didn't join to hear the minutes read out, as exciting as that is.
Absolutely. I mean, this is really one of the things that we have to do in order to keep the membership there is make sure that we have new and interesting work, and that the work is aimed at the self-development aspects of the membership. One of the worst things that happens in lodges, I find, is almost like a stale routine where they're going to do a first degree demonstration, second degree demonstration, real first degree, third degree demonstration. Now, in order to, it does help people develop their ritual skills, but what it doesn't do is doesn't provide the membership with those opportunities for learning and character development. The other thing that they need to do is to have a little bit of social and fun activities in their lodge room. So to keep the members inspired, to make them remember why they've joined Freemasonry, to make them remember the best parts about it. So the funner aspects. When we've done a wonderful thing over at Cornucopia, and I know Amalthea has done the same thing, which is, was it Amalthea or Amicus? I can't remember which now, but one of those two. A table lodge where we have a ceremony around the south where there's lots of toasting, lots of libation, and lots of fun. It's I think Bruce Stockdale, our membership manager for Freemasons Victoria, it was one of the funnest nights he thinks he's had in the blue. And so it's all about just keeping things fresh, keeping things new and alive for the membership, I think. As far as the business, everything should be handled in the committee, and then the secretary should just stand up and say, minutes haven't been circulated, I move that they be taken as read, and then read, and adopted. Same with committee of general purposes, same with treasurer's report. Shouldn't be any more than a bank balance, and account and the balance sheet being sent out to the membership. If they want to ask questions, exactly, it's got to be done during committee of general purposes, not in the lodge room. It's not general business in the lodge room is not time for grandstanding. No. It just turns new members off.
Even
Absolutely.
Social reports and stuff like that can drag on, as we've had recent experience.
Yeah, absolutely. 30-minute social reports, always fun to listen to, especially if you're not a member of the lodge. Let's go straight to Andrew Power on this one. Andrew,
from Brighton Lodge,
from Brighton District, which is a great lodge. Tell us, Andrew, what can we do to sort of make lodges more relevant? I mean, this is a funny thing. We should be meeting in lodge to talk about Freemasonry. Last I checked, we don't do that unless your lodge is different. No, I'm sure it isn't, because it's not an indictment on any particular lodge, but it's just a rut that the system has created at the moment. And what can we do to make business meetings more efficient and ensure that we get down to the crux of why we're meeting, which is to talk about Freemasonry?
I think what we need to do is actually start to use technology for the way it's actually there. Setting up the systems where the lodges can transmit the reports to the members via email or snail mail if the member doesn't have email. Get it through, as Simon said, push it through the Committee of General Purposes, get that all out of the way. Now, this has been a problem. It's not a new problem. This has been a problem that was actually documented in a book I read from the 1950s, where they were talking about how people just want to get on with business in the lodge, get it over and done with, and get on to the good stuff. And this book from the 1950s even made suggestions about how many toasts in the South and things like that. So this is a problem that has been going on even beyond the technology that's come out in this day and age. Now, what I will add is in the past 6 months that I can recall, there's only one lodge that I'm currently aware of that's actually had anything to do with education offered. Now I'm going to make a plug for this lodge because I think it's worth rewarding these guys. They're in Ferntree Gully. It's the Peace and Loyalty Lodge. Yeah. And tomorrow night they've actually got an education session on the American Civil War and the effects that Freemasonry had on that. Now, that's the sort of stuff I would love to attend. Okay, it's great to get to the first and second and installations, all the degrees that's going on. But at the end of the day, we're not here to come along and hear bank balances and, the almoner, I think, is probably the only time that somebody should get up and take a considerable time to go into things, because that's about the health of the lodge. So we need to start utilizing technology to assist rather than to hinder.
Let's jump to Steve. Steve, you've been a member of quite a few lodges. Your mother lodge did close, and you joined 3 craft lodges to sort of get a test for where you're going, which lodge you wanted to stick with, and you've probably seen it done in different ways. You visit a lot as well. What can we do to make meetings more efficient? What's some things you really don't like about what we do in terms of the business side of things, and what would you cut or change to make things more efficient?
just synopsise exactly what Simon said. Just get it all out, bang bang, get it out of the way. The reports at the end, I mean, the social reports I've seen drag on. Even I think the armour is an important part, Andrew, definitely. Who we pick as armour, I think, needs to be looked at in a lot of lodges. It's usually often a guy that I've spoken to older brethren, and they keep them in there because they want to have a collar. And it's often one of the older members, and no offence to them, they're not up to standard, and it should be just still banged out reasonably quickly. And they're not physically able. Often the armour is not there because their health isn't best themselves. So I think lodges need to look at a younger member. I know the Lord Northcote Lodge. They've got a younger guy in there. He's a past master. When I say younger, he's in his 50s or thereabouts. And he didn't want to do it, but he's done a great job with it. And he doesn't have the time to go out and visit guys like the other older guys do. The older guys can still do that. But I think their reports at the end need to be cut down, and the production line of ritual, as I call it, the production line is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And as you're saying, Simon, in the country they're doing demos. What gives? I mean, the best thing I love about being I'm now a member of 2 lodges, one at night time where I'm going through the office. The daytime lodge I'm a member, I had the privilege of doing a talk myself only last week about the Masonic Advancement Program and stuff. But we always have an interesting talk, and it's lodge specific about Freemasonry. Something, I mean, sometimes it's not. It might be about what Joe Bloggs did for his career, but it's something different. I think, as Andrew said, you want to get along to these things. It's got to be done. There's got to be more educational nights.
Absolutely. And look, just before we get into what we can do to fill that time once we've made our meetings more efficient, let's go to David. David, you're a new member. Tell us, what's some of the more, do you go to lodge and sort of get really excited about the Treasurer's report? Or, I mean, I know I do, but that might be just me.
Oh, Jack, I can't wait. I wish the Treasurer's report was actually an hour long. I find it deeply fascinating.
Do not say that, mate. Do not say that.
No, I mean, I completely agree with everyone. The secret, like a lot of the reports, the minutes, the Treasury report, it does drag on a bit. It is things where I've never been to a lodge where they go, I pass a motion to pay the accounts, and everyone goes, no, we're not passing those accounts, and then they get into a discussion, and the debate, everyone just goes, yeah, just pass it, just pay it, let's get it off the thing. In which case you look at that and go, well, if that's the same in every meeting, then send it to the board to take care of. Take it out of the lodge room, because we're going to need to pay these things anyway, so just get them paid. But I mean, the best lodge night I've had, now I've been to countless first degree ceremonies as my role in the Blue Lounge and visiting. I've gone to about over 10, I think, 10 or 12, possibly more, because a couple of those were doubles or quads. But the best night that I've had in it all was a night run that Nick ran at Brunswick, which was an education night, explaining where a lot of our ritual came from a point of view of this is why we do things. This is where the origin of it. That was fascinating. I had no idea about any of that, and I would love it if they did more lodge meetings with that. Now, I understand degree work needs to be done, but maybe break it up a bit more. If we need to farm out to other lodges, to get some of maybe the key ones at a lodge. So first and third. Second can potentially be farmed out. I mean, obviously, if there's room, keep it in there. Personally, I hope that I'll be doing all 3 of mine at Brunswick, but I'm also fine if it's somewhere else. Because if it means that we can have an education night where some good information is passed on, that's much better value than seeing the same degrees over and over and over again.
Yeah, I think if I may interject there a little bit, just from put my other hat on as just education officer, something we're working on in the Northern District now as education with James Tolk and Eric Williams, our district coordinator. We've got these guys called LEOs, Lodge Education Officers, that don't get the 5 minutes at the end of a lodge meeting. At my Daylight Lodge, it only takes 2 or 3 minutes. And they've got all this plethora of information. What's the Tyler's toast? Why do we vote the way we do? What do the pillars mean? Where were the pillars? What is that little door on the tracing board? That's actually the East Edges. These only takes 5 minutes, and lodges tie up so much of their time with this administration. I mean, I know we have to read out the 4 schedules because that needs to be done, but it can be done more promptly and succinctly, and we can give these lodge education officers or a guy in the lodge, it might be an apprentice, to get up and read this A4 page about something about the esoterics. It needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean, let's just talk about what we can fill that time with now. I mean, I think it's more than lectures. I think it has to be a discussion.
Yeah.
That's a bizarre thing, isn't it? Lodge having a discussion about something. This is something I love about my Mark Lodge. We had and Steve was there for this. We had a discussion on the Mark degree tracing board. And when I say discussion, it wasn't some guy getting up and doing a lecture. It was legitimately a discussion back and forth between the members and the person who was moderating the discussion about what elements of the degree board that we'd learned. And I'm a member of the Royal Arc Mariner degree, like a few of us here. And we did a demonstration of the elevation ceremony, which is one of the main ceremonies that are conducted in an arc. And I got up at the end of the meeting and they were talking about what things they should do over the next, sort of 4 meetings. We only meet 4 times a year. And it was like, well, instead of doing elevation demonstrations, why don't we get up and talk about the significance of the Noah Kedic legend and how that relates to Freemasonry? So I'd love to learn about that sort of stuff. So it's interesting, isn't it? You really do have to fill that time. And people see it may be easier to get up and do the business and to fill that time. It was up to me. When I become Worshipful Master, I'll be making sure that we farm out the necessary degrees that we have to farm out, because there are lodges that really do need to do degree work, whilst also ensuring our lodge officers are happy with participating in that ceremony to the extent that they can, but also focusing on things like providing, education that is two-way, focusing on practical elements of Freemasonry. Let's talk about the lodges, officers and what they do and their obligations. Let's talk about the practical things that being a lodge officer requires. Let's get some of those lodge officers up during the meeting and saying, hey, I took on the junior deacon's role. It was a bigger job than I expected, or it was hard, or whatever it is, and actually have these conversations. And even if we do need to go into the more esoteric, we can do that as well. But it does. Not everything has to be esoteric.
No, it doesn't have to be. I think if memory serves me correctly, your questions aren't always going to get answered either on that night. You'll ask a question. I think you asked a question that night, Jack, didn't you? And, I think it's now gone to the grand lecturer of Mark Masonry Victoria. He's written a lecture on it. Yes. So I'm looking forward to seeing that one.
Yes.
Shout out there to you. Great, the grand lecturer.
There's all the guys out there. And that's the thing. You ask a question and sometimes it doesn't get answered. But, one of the things that's important is that we ensure that we fill those. It doesn't even have to be lodge education. No. It has to be something that's entertaining. The brethren have to remember the investment they're making is not only financial, it's time. They're investing time into going to lodge. And we've got to make sure that time is worthwhile. They're not with their families. They're not at work. They're not doing whatever it is that they have to do. So let's make that time worthwhile. Let's talk about something else in terms of the stuff that I usually get spoken to about. Lodge dues. This is a huge issue. I'll give you an example. We had a brother recently who was a student thrown into a lodge that meets 6 times a year. It's $360 or something, a lodge fee, plus $35 a month for lodge dinner. Now, that's fine if you're a casual or a busy business person who wants to meet 6 times a year and has got the money to pay for that. Yeah. But for a student at a university who is interested in the esoterics of Freemasonry, that is probably not the best person to throw into a lodge like that. And I've said it a couple of times in this podcast. What can we do to ensure that lodge dues are economical and fair? Let's go straight to David on that.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I agree. I've been to lodges where the dining fee's been as high as $75 odd. Now, I look at that as a visitor and go, wow, it's a lot of money for basically the same food I get at every other lodge. But I also look at it and go, when you talk to the brothers, their dues are much higher as well. So I'm like, where is that money actually going? I mean, it's all good and well to have a lodge with a bank balance of $10 million and enough gold toilet paper to satisfy the Pope, but it doesn't really help if it's not being used for anything. I was thinking about this the other day when I was thinking about the dues and things like that, and I thought one of the biggest things that I think is hurting lodges themselves is younger members coming through may not be able to afford dues, and not even the younger members, older members who are on pensions, fixed incomes. It's got to be hard for them to pay some of these fees. And it's times like that where I think the lodges themselves need to either do a fundraiser or something to get some money to help these brethren who may not be able, who want to come but can't always afford it, and go, right, we've got a fund to help reduce those fees for you, or we've written your fees off this year, or the fees are covered this year because we've got this fund of money which we can utilize. And I think those sort of things are some of the key things that we can do to try to reduce the costs. Obviously, if some lodges have higher operating costs, then maybe we also look at, okay, is it high because they've only got, as someone was saying, 12 members, in which case, basically, unfortunately saying it, let that lodge close, bring all the members to another lodge, then they can reduce the fees because they've got a higher membership. So they're over, like the amount of money they're bringing in is a lot greater. And those are some of the things I think which could definitely help bring those fees down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the big issue that feeds into this, and we'll get to Steve-O on this one in a moment, but not only just the lodge fees, but the lodge fees are affected by the membership that are paying those fees.
Yeah.
This sort of brings up the question of, do we have too many lodges in Victoria? I think we do. Way too many lodges. We've got 9,500 members officially. There's a lot less than that, I think, but 9,500 members on the books, and we have 250 odd lodges, and it's just unsustainable. Absolutely unsustainable. We've got 16 people, or in the country, 12 people rocking up to a meeting. And, why can't we just have a situation where we reduce our costs, reduce our efficiency, make it more efficient, bring lodges together and have 30 people in a room instead of 12 people sitting there, hardly filling in the office bearer positions. Let's go. Steve, what's your view on that?
Well, classic example of that is, they've got 12 guys there, and it takes that to fill the offices. And they're kicking an apprentice out, and he's sitting there on his own for installation or first degree. And, I've been a member of 3 or 4 lodges, as you've said, Jack, and there was a discussion about fees at my daylight lodge, and they're forecasting a loss for the next 3 years. And it's because it costs so much to run the rent of the temple and the supper and whatnot. So we're introducing a small type of fee, but visitors won't pay that. And they've got to absorb. As far as the older members go, David, I think a lot of guys, once they reach a certain point, that honorary membership becomes a part there where the lodge will cover those older guys' fees. Why can't some of that money come from Grand Lodge, in my opinion? Got a guy who's been a member for, once they hit the 50-year jewel, I think, there should be an automatic reduction. That's a personal opinion on whatever their fees are, or Grand Lodge should come to the party if they can. The reduction in numbers is a necessity. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, there's 32 lodges in Northern District. Let's say that there's 4 lodges met at one building, and they're not talking to each other. The 4 craft lodges don't know what they're doing or what everyone else is doing. That's improving. Why not have a daylight lodge and a night lodge in that one temple? It makes perfect sense to me. I mean, I said before, my statistics and numbers aren't my best characteristic, but it's bleeding obvious to me that we need to reduce the number of lodges and strengthen the membership in each lodge.
Absolutely. I think that's a very good point. Let's go to Andrew on this. Andrew, do we have too many lodges in Victoria? And if so, what are we going to do to make it more efficient and to try to bring people along on the journey?
I think the last figure was 257 lodges officially. Some of those lodges are struggling, and that's just a fact. So, look, what are we going to do? I think we seriously need to look at travel. Travel's a big thing, as 50% of the membership is over 70. So as that makes it difficult to travel. And just recently I was visiting a lodge where they made an announcement that a long-term member was no longer able to attend the lodge because he had moved house. So perhaps we also need to look at how we can make it more accessible.
Yeah.
And there certainly needs to be some thought given, but I believe certain activities that are coming up, like the strategic planning that Grand Lodge is working with all of the major heads to try and get some action. I hope that that is some of the topics that they approach.
Yeah, I mean, look, you make a good point. I know, and we'll say this, I suppose, I can concede the Grand Lodge here in Victoria is doing a lot of exciting things in terms of the reform of Freemasonry, and the appointment of Jane Sydenham-Clark as the first female chief executive of Freemasons Victoria is really interesting.
It is ruffled.
and the separation, the constitutional reforms that have been proposed, which I personally will be supporting, which is a separation of the ritual from the administrative and business side of Freemasonry, is really, really important. So there are some great things going on in Victoria. We're leading the way in a lot of respects. But in saying that, in my view, Freemasonry, in terms of the change and in terms of the securing the future, it can't be Grand Lodges that we are expected to do that. It's got to be the grassroots membership. We as members need to be able to stand up in our places and say, yeah, we're willing to participate and do our bit to ensure the survivability of our organisation. And Grand Lodge can only really do so much. And I've said this before, Grand Lodge isn't a lodge. It's an administrative body. People forget that. They get really caught up in blue aprons and ceremonies where you're doing the sign of fidelity. Freemasonry is what happens in the lodge room, the tiled lodge room. That's where Freemasonry is. So we can't look to Grand Lodge like in other venues. You can't look to higher bodies and say, please fix all my problems. We as the members need to be able to do it. And that's what we're doing here today. We're getting together and talking about some of these issues and grasping the opportunities that are before us.
Can I just add something to that?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, look, it is a symbiotic relationship between all of the individual lodges and Grand Lodge. I think the benefit where Grand Lodge can assist the lodges is they have greater access to the statistics and the patterns that are happening within each of the smaller lodge bodies. So if there are things that are on a mass scale, that isn't going to be evident to each and every individual lodge. So Grand Lodge, I think, under the umbrella of Freemasonry, because yes, we are all brothers, and by using that statistical information, we can actually create systems that work with lodges across the board. So, so I agree with you. Yes, the lodges need to pull their socks up and need to start to look at things. But I also think because of the symbiotic relationship with Grand Lodge, vice versa, it shouldn't be an us versus them. It should be we're all in this together, because at the end of the day, if we don't have the right systems, where are any of us going to go to lodge?
Well, absolutely. Grand Lodge needs to be an enabler. And there's no us versus them anyway. We're all Freemasons. That's the important point I was making. So let's go, David.
Yeah, let me ask a quick question, Jack, just about this topic, because I completely agree with you with what you're saying. It does need to change in the lodge environment and the way lodges do things. So the question I pose, being a bit of obviously new to the craft myself, is how does that begin? Like, obviously it's nice to say, yep, lodges need to do it, but is this something that in sometime during the lodge meeting we stand up and go, brothers, I propose this, bring out your PowerPoint presentation and run through it? Something you do send to the secretary direct, or do you go to the board and go, we need to go from board down? Like, where would you start almost, forgive the term, a radical change like this, where it is shaking everything up in the way things that are normally done?
We'll get Simon to jump in if he has a different opinion as well, and the other guys. But my opinion is it starts at the grassroots level. And this is something that's really important. Whenever someone tries to impose something from the top down, they always fail, because centralization of power does not cater for the individual differences that exist in an autonomous system like ours, where lodges are warranted lodges and they have a lot of power. Lodges have a lot of power. They forget it. They do have a lot of power. Change starts at the administrative level. If you want to propose a change, go to your board of general purposes or committee of general purposes, or if your lodge doesn't have one, go to the relevant office bearers in a private space and say, look, I want to do X. I want to do this. I'm thinking about taking on this initiative. This is how the Blue Lounge started. It's a grassroots initiative. We have the support of Grand Lodge informally at this point. We are going to go in a discussion with them about the future relationship between us becoming more integrated as part of their organizational structure. But ultimately, grassroots initiatives start by people standing up and saying, I see an issue, I want to fix it, and trying their best to fix it. And if you wait for people to give you the tap on the shoulder, unfortunately, you'll be in a position where you'll be waiting for a very, very long time. So if you get to the lodge, why don't just try something? And if the lodge doesn't like, if they react in a way that they don't like, then you learn from that lesson, and maybe you think about whether or not that lodge is the right environment for you if they're not willing to adopt some of those changes. So hopefully that answers your question. Simon, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so one of the things, and never ever forget that the lodge is there for the membership. So you are the brothers of the lodge. You decide what happens in the lodge room. Now, one of the things that I've been able to do recently is actually what's called a lodge rejuvenation meeting, and it's a grassroots thing that we've sort of come up with at Lodge Cornucopia. Where I actually went out, similar to the Ultimate Masonic Survey, actually surveyed our membership, asked them what we did well, what we didn't do so well, how they wanted their lodge experience to be. And so from that, I ran a workshop over in Morwell where we invited the membership to come along and actually see what people said in an anonymous survey. Now, the results of that mean that we, of course, identified a lot of the things that people were unhappy with in the lodge. From that, being a dining lodge, we have a $60 dining fee, but through the rejuvenation meeting, it's become apparent that our demographic in the country doesn't really suit the same dining model that works in the city. So we workshop solutions to that, and one of the solutions that came out of that is that we're going to go to restaurants now that offer a split bill, so that people can set their own dining fee. We're gonna dine before our meeting. So that way, if we want to bring along the ladies, if we want to bring along a friend, we can bring them along at a normal time to a restaurant, 6 o'clock to a restaurant, rather than 9 o'clock at night when no restaurant wants to be serving food.
Yeah.
We can let them experience the social aspect of the lodge. Not to mention the fact that we're out and about in the public with our dinner suits on. At normal times, they're going to be asking questions. Who's that? What are you guys doing? Is this some sort of special thing? We're going to be promoting the craft. We'll have a model that works with our demographic as far as dining and fee structure, and we'll have a place where it's quite easy to bring in a new candidate and introduce him to the lodge environment. So it's just a matter of having that drive to actually get out there and do something. Just if you can see something that can be done better in your lodge, get along to your board of general purposes.
Everyone's
sit there in the
welcome.
committee. Everyone's welcome.
Yeah.
That's it. And share your ideas. Another thing I'd love to see is and we've already touched on this a little earlier, is to get technology in the lodge rooms. I mean, to have an iPad where the secretary can just do the minutes there and then at the table. They can project a digital projector so that they can actually project some of these educational materials. So it's just you can make your lodge anything you want it to be. Just don't be. It's everything takes work, of course, but don't be frightened. Don't be frightened, and don't let the old guard tell you that it can't be done.
No, exactly.
Don't accept no. Just it's your lodge. You go with it.
When I say welcome, I'm talking about the general purposes meeting. A lot of brethren, you got your representatives of two Master Masons on that board. But anyone can go to that meeting. You can't vote, but you can go and attend those meetings and put your point across, which is where it has to be done.
Absolutely, and that's what an inspirational message that was, Simon. Well done. That's I couldn't have summed it up better myself. Fantastic. And look, let's we're gonna close. What a fantastic discussion it's been, and thank you guys for offering your opinion. We're gonna close up. But I'm going to ask you the same. I'm going to ask you each the same question I've asked every guest that's appeared on this podcast for the purpose of Innovation Month, and that is, where do you see the craft going in 10 years, and what challenges do you think we're going to have to overcome to continue to be relevant to contemporary society? And we'll start off with Steve Austin. Go ahead.
Well, I think Andrew said 50% of the membership's over 70. I think we might find it's more than that. I've heard a thing about the tidal wave. We're sort of all back here as younger Freemasons. Once that tidal wave flattens out, we're going to have more trouble filling the offices than they are now. So that's going to be our biggest challenge. That's why the lodges need to be reduced and become stronger. Where I see the craft, I see it getting stronger because we've got this new regeneration of Freemasons coming through. And I'm not the oldest in the group here. I won't say who is, but I'm an older.
It's Jack.
That's
Yes,
Jack, yeah.
yes.
Okay, tell by the way he dresses.
The ripe age of 20.
His attire. Anyways, but I'm one of the. I think Simon and I both have been about the same time, but we've got this new generation. We missed a generation because of the secrecy. I mean, I've got the two guys I'm with today. One of the topics of discussion was how many brethren they know have got 2, 3, 4 sons that aren't in the craft. It's missed 25, 30 years. Let's not that happen. Let's be out there. Let's be seen in our dinner suit, Simon, as you said. That's not hard to do. Let's have dinner at 6 o'clock. If you've got no ritual, you can tile at 8, have your meeting done by 9, and be back at the restaurant with your wives. And again, especially I grew up in the country, and Simon knows I'm passionate, and that's where it's going to be focused on. So where we're going to be, we've got to get out visiting more and support the regional areas, and we've got to get the numbers stronger.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Steve. Let's go to Andrew Power, who's I would say I admire his views on a lot of things. And let's go with you, Andrew. What do you think we need to do what are the challenges we're going to face over the next 10 years, and what do we need to overcome? And more importantly, where do you think we're going to be?
Over the next 10 years, I think probably one of the most one of the largest things we need to change is that conversation that's happening about what Freemasonry is. I recently was interviewed, and the reporter asked, what can you tell me about the misconceptions of Freemasonry? And I made a comment to there are no goats, there's no Illuminati, and I started to correct them, and it scared some of the brethren. Because they said, hold on, Andrew's mentioning some things that the public's talking about. That's not good. But that's precisely the problem, because the public are talking about these things. If you go and do a YouTube, you will see what the world outside of Freemasonry thinks Freemasonry is about. And if we're too scared to turn around and approach that responsibly and enter that conversation, how in hell are we ever going to change it? We need to stop running from it and start educating people. Now, as a therapist, my background being a therapist, one of the things that affected people's success the most was fears and misconceptions. And there are so many fears and misconceptions with Freemasonry that is scaring people away. If we start to educate those responsibly and seriously, then people are going to say, well, wait, this is actually a really great organization. It's got nothing to do with all of that nonsense by those trolls on YouTube, So over the next 10 years, we need to start hitting the ground, grassroots and beyond, and start to really be proud of who we are. Now, I understand some brethren don't want to say, yes, I'm a Freemason, partly because of all of the misconceptions and fears in the public. Yeah. So if we start to change that conversation, people are going to become more proud to say, I am a Freemason. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest hurdles. And of course, you've got the age gap and the changing of the number of lodges and things like that. But I think marketing, we really need to work on that public image and start to move that in a positive direction for a change.
Absolutely. And the work you're doing, or you have done with the Blue Lounge, has been an important and vital part of that. And even drawing and sort of building on what you're saying, more importantly, like you said, our public perception is important, and the whole idea of misconceptions in the public, but internally about each other. We need to fix that as well. I'm a Victorian Freemason. I'm a member of Freemasons Victoria, and I'm very proud to be a member of Freemasons Victoria. And we're doing everything we can. The Blue Lounge is an initiative that is dedicated to recruiting, retaining, educating, supporting members for Freemasons Victoria. No one else. Freemasons Victoria. So internal misconceptions are really important as well. And the moment we can get over those hurdles and start actually talking about what we do and who we are, will be a very positive future for us. So thanks for those inspiring words there, Andrew. And let's jump to our good friend David Illingworth. David, tell us where you think we're going to be in 10 years and some of the challenges we're going to have to overcome to get there.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I completely agree with Steve. I think the organisation as it stands does need to shrink and get stronger so that it can grow again. We need to reduce the number of lodges we've got. By the sounds of it, by the numbers that we've talked about tonight, we have far too many lodges for the amount of attending members. It's all very good and well to have 300 members on the books, but if only 10 attend each and every week, then the lodge needs to seriously consider that. So I definitely see in the next 10, 15, 20 years, the lodge shrinking. Now, I'm going to step on Andrew's toes a little bit here. One thing that I think Freemasonry needs to needs to look at adopting is definitely like technology. Roll with the times. I know listening to some of the other podcasts, and I'll do some plugs out there, ones like the Masonic Roundtable, where they did a discussion, and others have done discussions on like virtual lodges that are all based over like a Skype call type thing. And I was thinking about it. I thought that's a great idea to bring almost a global organization. But then I thought more down in the lodge itself, and I thought that would be a fantastic idea for members who might be sick or elderly who can't attend. If they can just dial in, bang, they're in their lodge, they're able to attend virtually. And I thought for some of those members who are sick who really want to come but they can't get out of there because they're 80s and 90s, if the lodge lends them a computer and say, right, just click this button, right, you're at your lodge meeting now, think of how good it'll be for those guys who can now attend, albeit virtually, but they can still feel like they're involved. And like with the Blue Land Social Club, I want to see that grow. And I know we're actively looking, and Jack and I have been in talks about sponsorships and trying to get our logo and Freemason Victoria logo out there and really show that we are a part of the community. We are there to help and service the community. But also when people ask us and say, right, what is Freemasonry? You go, well, we do this, but we're also about personal and self-development and about making you a better person. And I think that's what we really need to push and drive home. And as Andrew said, marketing. We need to get some good, solid marketing out there just to eliminate those, I'd say, rumors and lies about what the organization is, to say, this is who we are. This is what our goals are. And I will celebrate the day that starts coming in more and more, and the day that we can truly grow as a younger organization.
Yeah, more than just a sign, a Freemason sign on the town sign as you drive in, Simon? Like, we've got Freemasons Victoria in this town. We need more than that.
Exactly right. Absolutely. And I think the idea of having, technology integrated into the lodge, I mean, that's a fantastic idea. Andrew touched on this idea of how do we get older people to meetings? Well, if we can, let's use technology to help them be at places they can't physically be. And there's so many members who suffer from that awful predicament. And even people who travel. I was speaking to a member the other day who messaged me saying he lives in China and there is no lodge in China. And he'd love to attend lodge meetings. He'd stay up in the morning to watch or to be part of lodge, even if it's only virtually. We need to be open to these ideas. But look, let's jump through to Simon. Simon, for all the things I admire you about, you're an enthusiastic Freemason who lives in the country, and the country really do feel the impacts of all these changes first. So tell us, please, where do you think we're going to be in 10 years, and what sort of challenges are we going to have to overcome to get where we need to be?
Absolutely. Look, I'm so excited. The whole Blue Lounge concept, I can see in 10 years' time, Freemasonry Victoria and lodges in country Victoria are going to be huge. It's these social events. They're really going to draw a whole new generation into the craft, and I know we've got the older membership, but they're going to take on a more of a mentorship role, and I think that's what they want. They want to be able to step back and let the younger ones take over. It's just that they're a bit frightened that the young ones don't have the support that they need, or the skills that they need, or don't do it the same way that they did. But I can really see that our lodges are going to grow over the next 10 years. I think it's going to be the 20 to 40-year-olds that are going to do it. They're the most interested ones. When I'm out and about wearing my square and compass, they're the ones that want to come and ask me what that is and what that means. I think we've got a wonderful start already with our most worshipful Grand Master giving us what is Freemasonry, and that is good men supporting each other, supporting their families, and supporting their communities. And I think if we get out there, we spread that message. We interact positively on a social basis around the place. We get ourselves marketed properly out there by having our dining before the lodge meetings out in the public where we're visible. I can just say it taking off. I think it's going to be a very, very healthy Freemasons Victoria over in 10 years' time. Challenges, how do we get there? The problem is we are a small membership. We are a small young membership, and it's going to be a hard slog for us few young members in order to get it there. But I think if we were to break that down into 5 years, I think in 5 years' time we should have enough growth to be able to share some of that load. But it's going to be a tough 5 years to get us there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Could well summarize. I'm like you. I'm really optimistic about the future of Freemasonry. I think we have so much to offer, and what the Blue Lounge is, and it's not just the Blue Lounge, there's so many other initiatives happening out there. They're aberrations of the membership's desire to really contribute to the viability of their future. And we are about representing young guys and giving them a voice in an organization where they are the clear minority, and giving reassurance to the older blokes and members that we are going to take that baton and run with it just as proud and just as strongly as they were. So that's something that's really important. I think it's a matter of us ensuring that we give the people who are currently the leadership of the organization the confidence that our generation is going to take it forward very strongly. And if we do achieve that, we will get the result that we desire, which is a stronger Freemasons Victoria here in Victoria and a stronger Freemasonry across all the jurisdictions and the world. So with that, I'd just like to thank you all for appearing on the Bro Light Masonic Podcast. I'm going to give you 30 seconds each, and I strictly 30 seconds to do shameless plugs and some final thoughts before I wrap off. I sort of tangent off into our closing for episode 17, which has been dedicated to a roundtable discussion about Freemasonry, its future, and its challenges. Let's start with Andrew Power. Final thoughts, Andrew?
Yeah, look, it is a hard slog ahead. I do want to hear Jack do a bit of rap, if that's possible. I'd love to hear Jack do a rap.
Zero chance.
But look, we need to come together as brethren of the same organisation. Now, I recently went to New South Wales a little while ago with a couple of you guys, and
Excuse me.
yeah, that one included, and just seeing the culture change once you go across that border. Some of the guys were like, "Oh, you're from Victoria," and some of them were extremely welcoming and understanding, accepting, great guys, and some of them I've developed close friendships with. A couple of them, I felt like they wanted to run us off with pitchforks and straw hats. So it comes down to we have to realize that. Yeah, okay, we have our own jurisdictions, our own constitutions, but we're all members of the same organization worldwide, and so the problems that are affecting Victoria, they're affecting New South Wales, they're affecting America, they're affecting England. So we need to work together to work out what's working. So once we find something, and yes, Victoria's got a huge battle ahead of identifying things and starting to change that conversation. But once we start to formulate what's working and what's not so working, and get rid of the not so working and focus on the good stuff, that's when I think we will have something that we can replicate, and that's where the growth will come back.
We're stronger together, and I think that's the message you're saying. And I want us all to work together. Absolutely. Let's go to David. David, thank you for being on the podcast. It's really great to have you on. Let's go to your final thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. It's been a lot of fun. I hope to be part of the podcast again in the future. My final thoughts, I completely agree with everyone. It is going to be a hard slog going forward. And I think the best way for younger brethren to assist with that and to help grow is to be like yourself, Jack. Take part in the Board of General Purposes. Get on committees. Get on different things. Get involved in the lodge. Really show the older brethren that we are all equal and that we are able and capable of taking the craft to the future. And I think that's going to be crucial. And I know myself, I'm only an entered apprentice next month. Shameless plug, next month, the third Tuesday of the month, come down to Brunswick United to witness my second degree. But I personally can't wait till I'm a Master Mason, and then I can really start getting more actively involved in the lodge. At the moment, I'm very active in the Blue Lounge, and watch this space, because we will definitely be having many events coming up, like the Cricket Day, and when we got to work out the Northern District one. Steve and I have to sit down and have many beers and work out what it's going to be. I'm thinking many beers, but I think it'll be. I think the time ahead is exciting, and I think people should not be worried about what the future holds, but look forward to it. I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised in 15 years' time when we come back and watch this video and go, wow, we did everything we wanted to do and even more.
Fantastic. And Simon, have I gone to you for final thoughts? Let's go to you for final thoughts.
No. Let's my quick shameless plug. Lodge Cornucopia, second Tuesday in November. Please come along. It's we haven't changed our dining arrangement yet, so we toll at 6:30. Now, apparently, the senior warden there, who's apparently an excellent ritualist, is going to be delivering an educational night on the Temple of King Solomon. So, what that involves, I actually have available to me a model of King Solomon's Temple, and we can deconstruct it as we go through the lecture. So it's I've heard the lecture before, I've delivered it before, and it is one of the if you don't know much about King Solomon's Temple, I would highly recommend coming along and just having a listen and saying you might be surprised what the middle chamber is and what the three entrances were. So
I'll be awesome.
We'll have to get you on for a podcast episode dedicated to talking about not only the first temple but the second temple as well. Absolutely. And I think people will be surprised about where the middle chamber actually is located. It's quite
take it on the road, Simon. Take it on the road. Go to all the.
I will. I'm almost in all the lodges already.
A couple of good YouTube videos that can help you out with that, Simon, too, that we've got in the map here in the Northern District. Actual virtual, so have a look at that.
Yeah, we might link them in the show notes just so people can get access to it.
We'll see what we can find.
Let's do it. Let's come to our final thought, which is with Steve Austin. Steve, give us your final thoughts.
I really feel like I'm on offsiders now. What are you offsiders, insiders. I thought Jack prefers insider because he's a bit more politics. I'm in the sport, so I'm an offsider. Which side's the off stump on, Jack? Do you know?
It's on the off stump side.
Yeah, it's on the off stump side. It's all right, mate. Well, you're always going for the middle stump anyway, Jack. So, but final thought. Look, let's just poor and distressed Freemasons all spread over this broad surface of the earth. Let's get together. We are all Freemasons. We are all brethren. Our Masonic family extends beyond ourselves. It's our families, as Simon's mentioned, that our new Uncle Don Reynolds, Don is good, which I've happily passed that term on to Don is good, who was my father. And Donnie's doing a good job. It's a hard job because he's in a big transitional period about the three past Grand Masters have set in motion. I know that Keith Murray wants to sort of continue this, or I assume he does. I shouldn't put words in his mouth at all, but let's just get out there and support each other across jurisdictions. Freemason without borders. That's what Jack and I have experienced recently going up to New South Wales and Burke, New South Wales, very close to Queensland. Shout out to worshipful brother Stephen Hall up there and all the brethren up there. All the brethren everywhere. Let's support each other and let's make Freemasonry go stronger and stronger and stronger.
Well, thank you very much, each and every one of you, for that final thought. I'm going to quickly do a bit of a wrap-up for the episode 17 of the Brought to Light Masonic Podcast.
Wrap or wrap up?
Wrap up. Not a wrap. I'm not going to give Andrew the dignity of knowing that I'm rapping, which is...
Waka waka.
He unmuted himself. It's fantastic. Let's do some final. I'm going to do my final thoughts to sort of wrap up the episode. And I just want to say to our listeners, each and every one of you, from whether you come from Australia, Victoria, United States, United Kingdom, we had some. I looked at some statistics on YouTube, and apparently 15% of our listeners on YouTube are from the Dominican Republic. So to each and every one of you, shout out to you guys, and thank you very much for listening to the Brought to Light Masonic Podcast, which is an initiative of the Blue Land Social Club. And as I mentioned, we're all members of Freemasons Victoria, and very proud of the fact. And there's a few things I need to do before we wrap up the episode. Firstly, I'd like to thank Brother Lucas Crandalls, Brother Richard Wakefield, and also all the other guys who had participated on the original recording of this podcast. Unfortunately, this is the first time we've taken this sort of,
Richard Shelley.
Yes, Richard Shelley. Yes.
Richard Wakefield.
Having those guys on the podcast was really impressive. It is important that we ensure that, we deliver good content. So we've had to unfortunately re-record it for the third time. The first 2 times my internet connection was an issue. Then the first time it just didn't record. It's ridiculous. We had a 1.5 hour conversation, just didn't record. So
Andrew's fault.
And I blame Andrew. But look, it's one of those things where we do want to deliver quality content. So this is the third time we've recorded this. But I hope you've enjoyed this format. This format is going to be delivered to you once a month from this time onwards. We're going to have a hangout session. I know David's keen. I know Simon's keen. I know the other guys are keen about being on this
as mustard
once a month. And it's a good way of doing things. So we hope you enjoy it. We'll have our normal 3 episodes, which will be done by iTunes and the internet and YouTube, but this will be done in terms of it. We might even go live eventually once we feel confident enough that we're delivering good enough content and we're not saying anything inappropriate, not looking at Steve. So let's have a quick look at some of the things I need to do before we wrap up the show. I just need to say that I want to do a shout out to a couple of brethren who have contacted me over the last couple of days and some of the inspirational messages I've received. And I've received a message from Brother Philip. I'm not going to use his last name just in case he doesn't want us to identify him. But Brother Philip was a member of Victorian Constitution and unfortunately had to move overseas. And he said to me that he wanted to thank us for the show and wanted to say that the content we're delivering is his only connection to Freemasonry. And he said that we've kept the spark alive. We've kept the battery charged. And I just want to say to you, Phil, thank you for that wonderful message. It was very inspirational. And we're very happy that we're helping Victorian brethren, no matter where they are in the world. We're actually outreaching to them and keeping their Masonic interest sparked. So thank you for that message and thank you for the inspiration. I've been asked by the district coordinator of the Northern District, I'll just get my phone out here, to invite all entered apprentices, fellow crafts, and other interested brethren to the next regular meeting of the Lord Northcote Lodge, number 191, which will be happening on November the 8th at 7:30 p.m. And the whole purpose of this meeting is to be discussing the oaths and obligations. Why do we take these oaths? Why do we do these obligations? And what do they mean? People really don't have an idea of what it is that they're doing when they go through these ceremonies. So get along to this meeting. It's on the second Tuesday of November. It will be at the Ivelda Masonic Centre, which is in Ivanhoe. And I encourage all entered apprentices and fellow crafts, wherever in Victoria you are, to head along. If you want further information, you can ask me. Contact us at contact@bluelandsocial.com, and we will be able to assist you with that. The other thing that I want to do is do a shout out for the Masonic Light Podcast, which is our friends in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I had the privilege of appearing on their latest episode 15. So if you like Aussie humor, a bit of jokes about our accents, and a good attempt at me trying to do an American accent, which was shocking, jump on to the Masonic Light Podcast, which was hosted by Pete Ruggieri. Sorry?
You sounded more Canadian?
Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't sound very American at all. But it was Pete Ruggieri and Jason Lewis, my friend Jason Lewis, who appeared on that. And we had a fantastic time. Also, we'll be doing a Christmas special with the Masonic Light Podcast. So if you want to see some free crazy Australians put in the same room as free crazy Americans, you'll have some fun. We'll be talking about Freemasonry, playing some Masonic games, and we might even get the big fella in the red and white coming down to say hello. So the Christmas special,
not me.
It's going to be him. The Christmas special is going to be very important. So we look forward to announcing more details on that further. And also the Masonic Light Podcast guys will be on our podcast later towards the end of Innovation Month. So we're looking forward to having them on. And thank you guys for everything you do. Talking about virtual lodges, David Illingworth mentioned virtual lodges. I have confirmed that it is a regular lodge, and Victorian Constitution recognises Castle Island Virtual Lodge, which is next meeting on the 30th of November. For Australia, it's the 1st of December, and I can confirm I will be in attendance. So for all our international listeners and domestic listeners who want to sit in lodge with us, attend Castle Island Virtual Lodge on the 1st of December or the 30th of November. They've got a talk dedicated to Freemasonry in Arizona. It's going to be a fantastic experience. I really can't wait for this. And we look forward to joining Brother John Ruark, who is the host of the Masonic Roundtable. I think Robert Johnson, a few other guys are going to be attending. And I also have invited Jason Lewis of the Masonic Light Podcast. So it's going to be a fantastic virtual lodge experience that we've never experienced before. So I encourage you all to get along to that.
Are we all together again, Jack?
Yeah, I'm not sure how it works. I'm waiting for the information. But once we get onto that, it'll be fantastic.
I've got the book.
You've got the book, good. And we've got the jewels, and I've got my regalia, and we'll lock the door. But either way, it will be interesting. So Castle Island Virtual Lodge, 30th of December or the 30th of November or the 1st of December, whichever time zone you live in, and come along and jump in for a great experience and sit in the lottery bus. It'll be very, very interesting. Also, I'd like to thank the Masonic Roundtable for discussing a little bit about the podcast and discussing our interview with John Ruark, and also for linking the show. It was really fantastic. And we look forward to having a few of the other hosts on the Masonic Roundtable on our show as well. Also, I guess the only other thing I had to sort of plug, and I'm choosing to do this, unlike the other podcasts and stuff that are out there who I think have got a commercial relationship with the Masonic Revival, I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart. I'm going to be plugging the Masonic Revival, which is a regalia/Masonic fashion site. They provide ties and all sorts of really cool stuff. Regalia, Masonic aprons. I'm thinking about buying an American Master Mason's apron just to have in my room. I think it's about $60. So that's pretty good. Lambskin and all. I wish it was that cheap over here. But more importantly, they've released this new watch range, which is called the Regal Masonic watch range. And I have ordered my first watch. It costs, I think it costs about $100. And I can assure you it's worth it. It's a beautiful watch. They've worked a long time on designing it, and that's coming in the mail. So that's not a plug because we're getting paid for that. As you said, we don't get formal sponsorship, but it is just worth looking at because I suggest their stuff is really good. So check out the Masonic Revival. Chuck that in Google.
Brought to light, guys in America. Thank you.
There you go. And we've got some Masonic T-shirts. I'm not sure if Steve's the best model for the T-shirts, but if you do think they look good, you can purchase them. I don't know where you can, but just
we'll get it out there.
We'll put it in the show notes if I get the link off my friend Steve. Other than that, as I said, we will be doing these roundtable discussions once a month. We are still in Innovation Month. Next week, we'll be hosting an episode with Right Worshipful Brother Greg Goding, who is a member of the Freemasons Queensland, United Grand Lodge of Queensland, who is the author and producer of Order in the House, which is a presentation that talks about some of the deficiencies with the craft and 5 practical ways you can implement new solutions in your lodge to ensure its longevity. And he deals with some very interesting topics. There's some things I very much agree with him about, and there's some things we'll be taking him to task on. And he's kindly agreed to jump on the Brought to Light Masonic podcast despite some of the technological issues that we're having and to discuss those issues. So look out for that interview. It's a fantastic interview. And I'm going to once again link his lecture, Order in the House, in the show notes, which I highly recommend you watch. Aside from that, thank you very much for listening to episode 17 of the Brought to Light Masonic podcast. I'm your host, Brother Jack Aquilina. And until next time, we will speak to you next week. And until next time, keep safe and make sure you keep making your daily advancement in Masonic knowledge.